Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another AMSCO AP World History reading. And today we are reading Chapter 9.6, Globalized Culture. And I hope all of you stay cultured and continue to watch my content. Anyways, let's dive right on in. What is interesting is the power and the impact of social media. So we must try to use social media in a good way. End quote. Malala Yousafzai, Pakistani human rights activist, born 1997. Essential question. How has globalization changed culture since 1900? At the start of the 20th century, political and social developments led to new directions in the arts. Writers, painters, and musicians developed modernism, a rejection of tradition in favor of experimentation and uncertainty. World War I, a global depression, and World War II had focused attention on survival. After World War II, however, citizens of wealthier nations began to develop a consumer culture, one in which people tended to focus more on what they bought and owned than on where they lived, what they did for a living, or what they believed. As trade restrictions loosened and new technology became more widely available, people worldwide began sampling arts, popular culture, and ideas from faraway countries. However, few could predict the global connectedness made possible by social media, nor its power to do both good and ill. Political, social, and artistic changes. Change was everywhere at the start of the 20th century. In just about every main field of human endeavor, new perspectives and discoveries were redefining the way people thought about their social and physical environments. Key political changes also helped shape their society. Political changes. At the beginning of the 20th century, imperialism was creating sometimes fierce competition among nations. Two world wars raised the conflict to the level of deadly force, although allies standing together developed a good working relationship and understanding of one another. The Cold War divided much of the world into camps, stressing differences rather than commonalities. After the Cold War, both economic and cultural barriers fell, bringing about countries closer together. In some key ways, collaboration gradually replaced competition as nations formed cooperative, regional organizations such as the European Union and NAFTA, as well as global associations such as the United Nations for Conflict Resolution and the World Trade Organization to regulate international trade. Social changes. Along with these changes came social changes. International organizations and collaboration brought people of different cultures into closer contact with one another, just as international exchanges had done in the past. Rights movements, civil rights and women's rights especially, helped bring formerly marginalized voices into the mainstream conversation. People were also questioning long-held beliefs about humans and their environment. Albert Einstein, 1879 to 1955, and other scientists upended people's undertaking of physical reality. Sigmund Freud, 1856 to 1939, probed the invisible inner workings of the human psyche. Jean-Paul Sartre, 1905 to 1980, philosophized that nothing had meaning. Technological developments in communication, transportation, and medical and other scientific knowledge brought change after change, from horses to cars, from telegraph to radio, from antibiotics to vaccines. Artistic changes. These changes were reflected in the visual arts, literature, and music of the time. Cubism, a style Picasso used in his famous painting Guernica, challenged traditional perspective in the visual arts. See topic 7.4. Stream of consciousness writing by such authors as Marcel Proust, 1971 to 1922, and James Joyce, 1882 to 1941, rebelled against traditional narrative forms. And atonal music, such as that composed by Arnold Schoenberg, 1874 to 1951, explored musical expression outside of familiar tonalities. To name just a few examples, Many scholars suggested that these expressions were a response to the mechanized, urbanized society widespread in the early 1900s. An especially vibrant expression of 20th century perspectives was the Harlem Renaissance, a rebirth of African American culture, as it sought to distance itself from the stereotyped portrayal of African Americans in literature and on stage. During the Harlem Renaissance, writers, poets, musicians, and social activists made Harlem a thriving center of energy for Black artistic expression. Jazz emerged and became an international language. Global consumer and popular culture. In the 1920s, popular culture, the culture of everyday people rather than the educated elite, expressed itself through new media, radio and motion pictures. Radio, movies, and later television created a culture shared throughout a nation and eventually throughout the world. Radio provided a variety of programs, from easygoing comedies to music hours featuring the latest in big band entertainment, and during World War II, it played a vital role in national defense in most industrialized nations. Movies provided relief from the anxieties and pressures of the Great Depression while reflecting it in its themes. Charlie Chaplin's Little Tramp character of silent movies epitomized the down and out. Radio and television also ushered in the consumer culture that characterized much of the developed world after World War II. The free programming reaching into the homes of millions of people carried with it commercials for the products of sponsors. Industry turned from wartime production to the manufacture of consumer products, and people around the world were eager to buy. In the 1990s, the internet connected people around the globe. And as you can see from this chart, primary news source for people in the United States, giving different years and a different percentage of people, never reaching past 80, but at maximum going to 78 in 2009 with TV. It appears the source is Pew Research Center for the People. In the early 21st century, the United States remained the world's most influential culture. Through Americanization, people the world over learned more about the United States than Americans learned about the rest of the world. This dominance of the United States created resentment among those who felt that American popular culture diluted their unique cultural identity. In the early 21st century, many people around the world considered Americans' consumer culture to be a throwaway culture. They objected to the waste and pollution that was part of the focus on newer, cheaper, more disposable products. English spreads and changes. Through the influence of the British Empire and through American movies, corporations, and scientific research, English became a second language in much of the world. In early 21st century, about 300 million people in China were learning English, which was about the same as the population of the United States. Many English-speaking corporations moved their call centers to India and the Philippines, where they were the largest number of fluent English speakers who would work for relatively low wages. As more people from other countries learned English, they spoke it in new ways. For example, Indian English has included the word prepone, which means the opposite of postpone. Global brands and commerce. As multinational corporations advertised and distributed their products, global brands such as Apple, Nike, and Rolex emerged. A company called Interbrand names the top global companies each year based on financial performance, ability to influence consumer choice, and ability to command a premium price. The 2018 winners included Toyota, which sells more cars than other brands, tech giants like Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Facebook, and the company that famously announced its desire to buy the world of Coke and its 1971 multicultural commercial, Coca-Cola. Online commerce makes shopping a global affair as well. Sites much as Amazon in more than 17 countries and Alibaba, mostly in Asia, make a massive selection of items available. The online auction site eBay operates in 30 different countries. Although the platform is international, these online retailers must pay a variety of sales tax according to the laws of each country or state in which they sell products. Global influences on pop culture. Although the United States is still the dominant culture internationally, influences from other cultures have been welcomed in the United States and elsewhere. For example, Indian musicals made in Bollywood, the popular name given to the film industry in Bombay, Mumbai, enjoy popularity worldwide. Bollywood itself is a blend of film styles. India makes more films than any other country. A style of Japanese hand-drawn animation known as anime became hugely influential. In 2016, 60% of the world's animated TV shows were based on anime. Anime was introduced to American culture in the 1980s through the movie Akira. Television shows in the late 1990s, such as Pokemon and Dragon Ball, brought anime into the American mainstream. Reggae. Music from Jamaica is global in both its origin and its popularity. It emerged in the 1960s, blending New Orleans jazz and rhythm and blues style with mento, itself a fusion of African rhythms and European elements. It is associated with the Rastafari religion, which promotes African Pan-Africanism, the connectedness of all Africans, whether they live in Africa or in the diaspora. It often blended with musical traditions of other countries as its popularity became global in the 1970s through the music of Bob Marley. Another style of music that fused a variety of traditions and became a global hit was the Korean music nicknamed K-pop. Its artists who sang it in a mixture of Korean and English became global stars in the early 21st century. Their popularity was also boosted the popularity of other South Korean exports. In fact, they are considered so valuable that the government has invested in K-pop concerts and tours. Internet-based streaming video sites such as YouTube and Vimeo helped popularize K-pop and other musical styles with a global audience. Social media and censorship. Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and other forms of social media changed communication. They can inspire, but also manipulate, as attested by Malala Yousafzai, the Pakistani activist and youngest Nobel Prize laureate. People debated their power for good or ill. In some countries, such as China, the government banned social media from outside the country. However, China allowed its own forms of social media, including WeChat, Weibo, and Youku. The government censored any criticism of the Communist Party that appeared on these platforms. And now also, as you can see by the image above, since Olympic athletes represent their home nations, the Games demonstrate the strength of nationalism. However, since the Olympics draws people together from nearly every country in the world, it is also an example of internationalism. Global culture in sports. The globalization of popular culture included sports as well. The establishment of the modern Olympic Games in 1896 reflected as early sense of internationalism. In 2016, the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, attracted about 3.6 billion viewers worldwide. Soccer emerged as the most powerful sport in the world, in part because it required so little equipment that could be played almost anywhere. The World Cup soccer competition rivaled the Olympics as a global event. Basketball also became a global game, and players such as Michael Jordan and LeBron James became internationally known. In 2014, the National Basketball Association, NBA, included players from 30 countries or territories. In 2017, reporters from 35 countries covered the NBA Finals. In 2018, 27% of Major League Baseball players were foreign-born from 21 different countries. To women, and let's see, as sports became more popular globally, they also became more available to women. Some Muslim female athletes, including fencers, weightlifters, beach volleyball players, hockey players, and figure skaters, competed while wearing hijab, known as English as a headscarf. They adapted athletic wear so they could compete while following traditional Muslim practices regarding female modesty in clothing. Hajara Abul Fazi A soccer player from Afghanistan explained that she wore the hijab to show the next generation and their parents how Afghan women and girls can maintain respect for religion and culture while pursuing sports achievements. Global culture and religion. Globalization promoted new religious developments. In the 1970s, former Beatles band member George Harrison released a song containing the words of a Hindu mantra or sacred utterance. This launched the popularity of the Hare Krishna movement, which was based on traditional Hindu scriptures. It quickly gained popularity in the United States and Europe. In what some called New Age religions, forms of Buddhism, shamanism, Sufism, and other religious traditions were revived and adapted for a largely Western audience. In China in the 1990s, Falun Gong, a movement based on Buddhist and Taoist traditions, gained popularity. Although the communist government allowed the movement at first, Chinese authorities began to restrict it in 1999. The suppression prompted international protests against the Chinese regime for human rights abuses. In the early 21st century, most people around the world identified with some form of religion. However, an increasing number of younger people in many countries identified as non believers. They are not necessarily atheists, people who do not believe in any god, or agnostics, people who believe that it may be not possible to know if God exists. Most were simply not affiliated with any religious institution. Key terms by theme. Society, belief systems. Hare Krishna, New Age. Falun Gong, non-believers. Culture, sports. Olympic Games, World Cup, National Basketball Association, NBA. Culture, arts. Consumer culture. Modernism. Popular culture. Bollywood. Anime. Reggae. K-pop. Society influences. Americanization. Malala Yousafzai. Throwaway culture. Technology, commerce, and entertainment. Global brand. Streaming video. Online commerce, and social media. And that is going to do it for today's chapter of 9.6 Globalized Culture. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I think this was kind of my favorite chapter by far. I don't know why. There are a lot of really good. Nope. Oops, sorry, just hit a wrong button on my own dashboard. Anyway, so I think this was my honest favorite chapter by far. The reason for this is because, honestly, it shows a lot about modern culture and how it actually came to be, as well as why it's so widely spread and known, as well as playing a massive role in our modern day society with children and adults all alike. Because honestly, it shows a lot about different cultures and also shares a lot about the world we currently live in. And honestly, it's really nice to get to know about your own culture. Which is why, no, sadly, we are not yet sponsored by Ancestry.com. However, I really do like this chapter and really do like some of its concepts. Like, after all, I really find it interesting that some of the things that were produced actually were caused by globalization. However, moving on, I really hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and then hit the notification bell to stay up to date on when I post more content. However, that's going to do it for today. And remember, stay happy, stay entertained. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay entertained.